Oh, there she is. Look.
There she is. I just saw her. Yep.
Or, she might be getting on and requesting. Karen Brock. It says you're the host now.
Recording.
Hey, Chris.
Hello, I think. Hi, I think it's recording. It says recording. Does it say recording?
Oh, are we able to? Then maybe I should stop recording and then re-record.
No, I think it should be just. I think if it says recording, then you're good.
Well, it says please request permission from the meeting host. Okay.
I did not get any form of a notification on that, so I went ahead and went into my Zoom account and made it so that it automatically recorded.
Okay.
So it should be recording on your end.
It says recording on my end, if that helps. I don't know if that makes any difference,
really?
but
And I think it should be fine.
Okay. So do we cut this part out?
You probably can. Yeah, I can help you with that later on.
All right.
I'm just glad I'm not the only one who's technologically challenged.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, good.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Of course. Have a good meeting. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
All right. We are here with, Karen Dubrock with Redevelop Institute, where she is a licensed counselor. And Karen, tell me, first of all, you know what? How in the world did we even meet? You know, I know.
Oh my
that,
gosh, who even knows?
I don't. I really don't. I've known you for quite some time, but you know, my wife and I, we attended the same church where your brother is the lead pastor. But then I remember meeting your husband 10, probably a good 10 or more years ago in a class called Explorations, and where you all moved up from Houston, right? And I just,
from that area.
I went up to your husband, John, and just introduced myself. And then we just had a little talk, but I really don't know when you and I did. I don't know if we just were in a circle and we just introduced. I just don't remember, but
I don't either. I don't remember either. Maybe, but I do remember it being at church. I just don't remember. I don't remember when that was. I don't know. But see, that's how it is with old friends, right?
Yeah.
You don't even remember how you met.
Yeah, that's right. That's okay. But here's the deal. We all know that we're in a crisis. And I had felt that I wanted to reach out to somebody with some expertise in just anxiety, depression, mood disorders, things that are just plain, that are running havoc on people nowadays, especially in the times that we're in. And, you know, I can speak into to people to a degree, but that's not where I thrive in having this understanding of what people are going through in these times and how they feel.
Sure.
And so I just thought it would be good to bring in an expert to talk to our members about this, because my assumption with the amount of people that are members at our gym, somebody or more will probably be feeling this way. Maybe not our entire gym, but I gotta believe that there's somebody out there in our gym that feels this way, and they just don't know what to do, and they're probably thinking, is there something wrong with me, and whatnot. So what have you noticed in your line of business, how people are feeling in this crisis? Like, what do you see in the rises?
So the two main things, and you're right when you say, I mean, it would be ridiculous to think that nobody is experiencing, that none of us have experienced any form of anxiety or just even the blues a little bit if not full-blown depression during this time. So that's just going to be part of the normal, because this is what happens during a pandemic. There's so much research that backs that up. And so our brains do some funny things with this kind of thing, you know. But there are two main things that from the start of this whole stay-at-home thing, I've seen a common thread of, and that is the first thing would be just this sense of I'm out of control. I feel completely and totally out of control, not like the normal out of control that I might feel about life or certain circumstances, but I just feel completely and totally out of control. You know, my government's telling me what to do. This virus is demanding that I take some new and different and scary in some ways precautions. So there's just an overwhelming sense of I feel completely out of control, which all of us hate, and understandably so. And then the second commonality is just overwhelming questions of what if, you know, what if I get the virus? What if my parents get it? What if my grandparents do? What if my kids do? What if I can't get to the hospital if something's wrong? What if I die? What if I, you know, all of the multitude of what ifs. And then you add to that things like, what if I lose my job? What if I can't find another job? What if my furloughed job ends up meaning that eventually I get laid off? You know, there's so many what ifs with this whole thing. What is life going to look like when this is all over with, you know? And so those are the two dominating things that I am seeing in all of my clients. And you're right, what that leads to then, and what that's a component of then, is just tremendous anxiety and depression. You're spot on with that.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't want to make this a long video. I just wanted to bring you in to kind of hear your wisdom and your, you know, your experience of this with
Sure.
many people that you've served. What are some action steps that people could take? Just some really practical action steps for folks.
Yeah, and I think that's the best question, and the one that is most asked. And for me, there are 5 things. I feel like, you know, you could go on to a huge list, but that's too much. We all basically will do so much better if we incorporate 5 things. At least this is what I see in research. This is what I'm seeing in real life and in experiences. And so often what I try to do is encourage people to, number one on that list for me personally, but also based on research, is going to be enhancing and leaning into your spiritual life. And by that, we don't necessarily mean just a religious component, although there are components to that absolutely affect mental health, and we have lots of studies that back that up. But a spiritual life, meaning as in, it's not just, you know, well, this is my affiliation, but this is what I lean into. Maybe I daily read some scriptures. Maybe I have a meditation process or a prayer life or whatever. What we know from studies is that, and again, I mean, you can land in a million different areas for this. And I'm not even going to be real specific about my own spiritual life. I'm just going to say that studies back it up. There's a study by these 3 researchers, Gardner, Larson, and Allen, and they pointed to correlations between positive physical, mental health in people who were religious. So religious meaning had any form of affiliation, but even more so for people who were spiritual, what they would consider to be spiritual. Suicide, and all the ideological things that come with that are lower in people who consider themselves to be spiritual. There are just so many studies that point to when that's a component in your life, you're just going to be in a better space when it comes to your mental health. So that would be number one. The second thing that I tell people is, and this probably lines up really well with your business, is physical activity. And oh my gosh, just Google it and you will find a million different studies that point to why that is such an important part of mental health, and specifically anxiety and depression. For one thing, and this isn't obvious probably for a lot of us who took any kind of biology in school, is that it increases endorphins and I think we pronounce it enkephalins. But those are just basically the feel-good hormones. Those are the things that get boosted and that help us tremendously when it comes to mental health, anxiety, and depression in particular. And now there are new studies that are even pointing to the fact that exercise appears to be just as good as pharmacological possibilities, antidepressants in particular, for mild to moderate depression, as well as dementias and anxieties, and even in some cases schizophrenia. So there are a lot of really great sound studies out there that point to some of that. The other part of this, and I do think this is a super important one, and so I'm spending a little bit more time on this particular one, is that exercise, we know, physiologically, biologically leads to neurogenesis and something, and I hate to be all like nerdy pants right now, but it leads to neurogenesis in your hippocampus, which is the part of your brain that controls emotions. It's your emotional regulation. And so what ends up happening is that increases, and we just have a better handle on being able to handle stressful events, and depression of any kind. And so antidepressants once upon a time were thought to have had the most significant value in raising serotonin levels, which are just, again, and it's another feel-good chemical in your brain. But what we're finding is that antidepressants, the pills, pharmacology, actually has some great benefit on increasing neurogenesis in your hippocampus. Well, that's the very same thing that exercise will do. Literally, we have a study that points to 3 or more sessions per week of aerobic or resistant training for like 45 to 60 minutes can help treat even chronic depression. And the study shows that that the effects are noticed after 4 weeks, and you'll get the maximum benefit if you continue training for 10 to 12 weeks, whatever. You're going to get some benefits even if you do it less than that, less times a week, whatever. But you're going to get the full effects of an antidepressant if you are busy doing those kinds of things. That is huge. And that's been just in the last 10 years that we found that. Isn't that great? And then, of course, exercise also increases dopamine, which we know that that's also a feel-good hormone that registers with our reward sensors in our brain that help us to feel rewarded. And of course, if you see benefits of it, of exercise and being physically active, then you're also increasing your dopamine levels as well. So that's a huge component. I know I just got really technical on all of that, but I think that's a big deal. Yeah. And then of course, my third, fourth, and fifth components of that, the third one is going to be an obvious one. It's productivity, just accomplishing things. And by the way, these 5 things are things that I'm telling my clients to do on the daily. You know, even if you're just going for a walk and you're not getting 45 to 60 minutes of physical activity, or even if you're not like opening up your Bible or your whatever, and you're spending an hour and a half reading and we're not talking, you got to change your whole lifestyle and do something to an nth degree in order to reap some benefits. That's not what we're saying. I'm just saying at some point, I tell my clients, at some point in the day, I want you to get these 5 things in. Okay. So the third one, accomplishing something, being productive. I mean, you can cross that one off probably if you're working out or doing something like that also. But productivity, whether it's work-wise, maybe it's something that you need to fix in the house. Maybe it's something with your kids, teaching your kids something, just something that gives you a sense of accomplishment.
Would this be one, making your bed, taking your shower, and getting dressed?
Oh my gosh, that's half the battle. That's half the battle. Some days that's all we can do. And guess what? It's an accomplishment, especially in these times. You know, right. Our brains can only function and handle so much. And believe it or not, you're exhausted. I mean, I've had so many people say, why am I so exhausted at the end of the day? I feel like I did nothing today. Well, your brain's trying to deal with a pandemic. So there's a big deal there, right? So, and that's exhausting. That's just as exhausting to your brain as, say, a half marathon might be for some people, you know? So you're doing a lot. Accomplishment can look like making your bed. It can look like getting out of bed for some people. You know, it can look like I ate 3 really great meals today, good for me, healthy meals today. That needs to be measured by you, but it needs to also probably be confirmed and encouraged and affirmed by people in your life that go, hey, way to go. You at least did that today, you know? Okay, so accomplishment would be the third one. And then the fourth and fifth, the fourth one is connection. So many studies pointing to the fact that if you have community, if you are in connection with people, and see, this is the thing that's really killing all of us right now, especially those of us who are, whose love language is physical touch. I saw this meme the other day about, oh my gosh, just buckle up when those of us who need physical touch are unleashed, because we gonna be hugging the mailman, you know, and that's just what it looks like for us, because we've been isolated from that. But when we say connection, and when I say that to my clients at this time, I'm talking about even just Zoom calls. You know, I'm talking about just getting FaceTime in. Maybe you have a happy hour, FaceTime happy hour with a friend. Maybe you do the driveway. I have a driveway date scheduled with a friend of mine on tomorrow afternoon. We won't get near each other, which is, like I said, it's going to be hard for me to not give her a little hug. But we need connection. We got to be in communication. I have people that are combining that accomplishment thing with this other thing of connection by literally snail mail. Remember that? Wasn't that a cool thing once upon a time? Snail mail, writing somebody a letter, writing somebody a card, encouraging somebody in that way. That's just another way of connecting. So connecting is a huge component. There's a study, a key study, that talks about the main difference between very happy and less happy people were good relationships. I mean, that's proven scientifically. That's a big deal. Okay. And then last but not least, is creativity. And the main reason for that is probably obvious. Number one, it distracts you. You know, it's going to give you a good distraction from all your what ifs and all of the things that are plaguing your brain during this time. And it's going to give you a really good way to just disconnect, which we need to do. But also, that's another thing that releases dopamine. It's a natural antidepressant to be able, and you don't have to be like Martha Stewart, you know, you can color in a coloring book, for heaven's sake. And believe it or not, it's going to release some amount of dopamine in your brain. Again, this is another one you can combine with things like meditation, which, I mean, and you can combine meditation with exercise. All of these things can be interactive. But that would be the last one that I'm telling people. And that may be the hardest one for people to do that don't feel like they're that creative. But you can get this in so many different forms. You know what I mean? Sidewalk chalk. Nobody even has to see that stuff but you know, and your kids. But just be creative. Go bake something. One of the first things I did was I started baking more in those first few days when we were stay at home. Okay. That's a method of both accomplishment and some creativity. So those are the 5 things that I think are really going to help people on a daily basis just keep their head above water.
Yeah, thank you and those are good. Now, what I had noticed in the 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are really practical. People can get handles around those last 4, but that first one, when we talk about spirituality, people are like, I don't even know what that means. And okay,
good point.
You, Karen, or Brandon, may be speaking of, you know, opening up the Bible. Some people don't even own a Bible, right? But
yep.
What kind of handles could we give those folks for step number 1?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the first things that, you know, I had a conversation the other day with a client who's atheist, and she knows where I stand spiritually. She knows what my background is and what I know makes life a lot easier and better for me. But during this time, she's actually willing, because of the circumstances we're in, to entertain the idea of, you know, maybe I could, for her, stepping into that spiritual piece means that she's going to actually, my assignment for her last week was to actually step into doing some searching out exactly where did this belief system of mine come from? Like, how foundational is that? Is that something that's going to hold up in a time like this? And to just go back to the drawing board, just start questioning it. There are plenty of books out there and plenty of things that you can look at that are not quite as biased as you might think, and are willing to entertain. Okay, here's what might be good about not having a spiritual life. Great, entertain the possibility. I'm not saying, nope, this is right and do these things. And this is somewhat, well, not somewhat, very much based on research, based on scientific evidence. If we have that, then what is that? Just start with asking the question and maybe going on a hunt for, what is that component? Is that possible? Double check me on that. Go check these references. See what you might find. That might be a starting point. A starting point for somebody else might be, you know what? I used to go to church and I don't anymore. And that's not really my thing. And never really found one that I relate to or that I like, or we've all had some experiences in that department. I get that. Why don't you just start with praying? I mean, it's just a simple thing for you to start doing. And praying just looks like a conversation. I think, depending on your background and your affiliation, religious affiliation, you might get confused about what that means. Basically, all that means is a conversation with God. And you get to do that. And so start there. Why not? What do you have to lose is my question, right? What do you have to lose? So just try it. Start out with something like that. There are a ton of resources that churches in particular, I know our church, Brandon, is doing some of this, where you can literally log on to their site and see some ways that you can explore, that you can ask hard questions, that you can actually look at evidence-based things, but then also get to hear some personal experiences that make a difference. And you're going to get that if you go on to maybe some church websites, but do the research. It stinks, I think, when we just get into our heads, well, this is what I think and this is what I believe, but it's not really founded on anything. Do the work. What else are you doing right now besides working from home and teaching your kids? And okay, I know there's a lot of things, but really, you got more time, probably, I'm guessing. So if this is going to be something that's going to benefit you, and we know that, check me on it, then go look into it and see what it might do for you. And that's just a starting point. Start maybe engaging in some conversations with people who you notice a difference in their lives, and you're like, what is that? Is there some spiritual component to that? Ask the question. Most people who that is a component for are more than willing to talk about that, So I think, I know that's a hard one to describe. I can't leave it out though, because it is so pivotal.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the forthcoming of you answering that question that I had. I understand it. Yeah. I do. And I want to encourage, as people are listening to this, I want them to be encouraged to explore kind of what you were talking about and ask questions.
Absolutely.
Because they're good questions. There is no wrong, silly questions. So
absolutely right. Absolutely right.
That's where I land with that. So, Karen, thank you so much for your time. One
absolutely.
Last thing, how can people, if people are feeling any of those things that we were talking about, whether it's anxiety, depression, mood disorders, just they're not feeling themselves, which is probably normal right now.
So normal,
and they liked what you were saying. How can they reach you? How could they get in contact with you?
Yeah. So you said it in the beginning, I work with our little organization is called Revelop Institute. We have guys in there too who do some fantastic counseling. Grant Williams is the guy that started Revelop Institute. He's a dear friend and a fantastic counselor. And then there are other people in our office that are just that are fantastic. So Revelop Institute, I would say go to revelopinstitute.org. It's REVELOP institute.org. You can reach out to me by emailing Karen at revelopinstitute.org. That's KAREN at revelopinstitute.org. Or, I hesitate to give my, well, no, I could actually do that. I could even give you my phone number, but the best way to reach me is probably going to be through that email. Just Karen at revelopinstitute.org. You have my phone number, and people are more than welcome to ask you, and I'm more than happy for you to give that out. Just reach out, and don't be afraid to. Often we think that there has to be something majorly wrong for us to reach out for help. No. You're actually healthier when you do have the courage to reach out. And it's not rocket science. It's about listening. It's about having some place to go with your thoughts and your fears and your feelings, and somebody to process it with, somebody that's not required to tell you what you want to hear and some of those kinds of things. So,
one last thing, as you were saying that, I think some people will think if I reach out, then I'm weak. That thought that goes through their head. Well, if I'm reaching out, then that's showing a weakness.
Yeah. And I hear that a lot, and I definitely hear that a lot from men in particular. I hate to say, but that's absolutely the truth. It's like, this is a sign of weakness. Actually, it's a sign of great courage. Anybody who reaches out to me in any form, the very first thing I say is, I'm so glad you reached out, because I know that's a big step. It was a big step for me. Once upon a time when I was experiencing a tremendous amount of anxiety and depression, it was a big step just to pick up the phone, and say, please, can anybody, set up an appointment for me? I need help. It's not a sign of weakness. That's the lie. It's actually a sign of strength, because ain't nobody getting through this life alone. We are not doing this by ourselves successfully. Nobody does. And so to admit that you need a little bit of help, and just, again, it's not rocket science. It's not like I have 5 million great ideas and you should accept every single one of them. I'm not God. It's just a matter of, let me sit with you, let somebody else sit with you and maybe absorb some of your thoughts and feelings and fears and pain, and just be a safe place for you to land. We all need that. I don't care who you are. And so it's a much more courageous step to reach out than it is, and a sign of strength more than it is to just sit in your stuff,
Yeah. Well, Karen, again, thank you so much for your time. And, and I look forward to seeing you in person when this is all over.
And buckle up, because y'all gonna get a big old hug from Karen.
Yeah. We're ready. But you enjoy your day. Yes, you are.
Thank you. It's such an honor. I appreciate it. I love doing this. It is the passion of my life, and I'm thrilled to be able to help in any way I can.
Yes, and you bet. And we can tell that is a passion of yours. And that's exactly why I wanted you on this Zoom call, so our folks could hear you. And I'm so thankful you said yes to it.
Oh,
so
thank you.
hope they enjoy this time, the conversation of you just kind of sharing some action steps and just kind of what you do and what people are going through. So
absolutely.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your rainy day. And tomorrow we'll be out for a hike, right?
That's right. Thank you so much, Brandon. Talk to you soon.
All right, Karen. Bye-bye.
Bye.